fulfill our hopes. He eagerly awaits to meet us and wants to meet those desires that we have in our heart. He speeds to the rescue. He longs to hear our confessions. He waits eagerly for our praise, for our questions, for our relationship, for our dialogue. He wants all of that. In other words, he always has you on his mind. He knows your heart. He knows your mind. So his timing will always be perfect. You see, you're never the second in line with God. You're always first. You're always first. Moving on quickly, point 6. God's timing has perspective. We all know this one. It's so much overquoted. Jeremiah 29, 11 and 12 says this. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. Now, I just want to take this from a slightly different angle than what we normally talk about this one on. I want to use it to say, for that to happen, God has got to have perspective. God has got to have perspective. And not just for our lives, but for the entirety of creation that he has made. He's got to have perspective. And God existed at the beginning of time, and he'll be there at the end of time, and he'll be there after we've long gone. He has no beginning, he has no end, and his time and who he is encompasses what we know as time altogether. It's a bit like that encapsulation kind of wallet for laminating. It's almost like time is like that sheet of paper that's put in it, and then it's cellophaned in with this cover, with this wrapping. And that wrapping is like God. He exists outside of time. So things don't happen in sequence with him because there is no sequence. So he has such a different perspective to us because he's not constrained by the things that we're constrained by. He created the physics and the laws of the universe that we run by. And he's not constrained by those. He's not constrained by those. And that's part of the miracle of Jesus, allowing himself to be constrained by those things, to enter into time and to walk in man's shoes. But God has a massive perspective, and we need to trust that perspective. We need to learn and trusting his timings. Why? Because he has that perspective. Because he's so much bigger than us. Because he sees so much more than us. And all his grace and all his mercy, he allows us to understand just bits of this and see this, and he's gracious not to pump so much of this information into our brains that they explode. He explains it in a way that we get in the frame of reference that we have. We've got such narrow perspectives. The Bible even tells us, don't we just see dimly, just as in a mirror? And so he has perspective far beyond what we can see and what we can comprehend. And have you ever been through something and thought, and this is point 7, God, that was absolutely awful timing. That was horrible timing. I have, far more than I'd like to say I do. Especially sort of like since the tail end of last year, event after event after event, family sickness after family sickness after family sickness. People have died, close friends have died. And I know that's happened for many of you, and some of you are in the middle of those circumstances right now. And I've stopped and I've gone, God, really? Not another one? Why now? Why is all this happening? How can this be your perfect timing? This is nuts. This is depressing. This is awful. You're a God that can do anything and everything, and yet all this is happening at this time. Lord, your timing sucks. It's awful. And I catch myself saying this. And really, we've got to admit to ourselves, yes, bad timing exists. And it's not only exists, but it causes uncountable problems at times. And we often trivialize bad timing. Oh, we've been caught out in the rain. We forgot our umbrella. Or I'm a bit late to a meeting. And yet there's other bad timings that are awful. They end up in catastrophic road accidents. And all these experiences can lead us to think that God has bad timing too. But as I keep on saying, that is not the truth. The truth is, his timing is true. His timing is perfect. The psalmist tells us in Psalm 27, verse 14, wait for the Lord, be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord. So we need to step back when we're going through horrible times. We need to reach out and cling to God. We need to look back on the reality of how he's walked with us, how he's taught with us, how he's provided for us in the past. And then we need to build our faith up in that and realize and wait for him to rescue us in our current circumstances in which we are. And sometimes we need to do that. We need to wait for him to rescue us. Because if we are so much in the center of God's heart, if we're always first in his thinking, how could his timing ever be that horrible? How could his timing be ever that bad? Number 8, there are never any strings attached with God. I've been recently looking for a new mobile phone service provider. And actually, you can say this for many contracts. It's not just the mobile phone kind of industry. But when you get out there, isn't it an absolute minefield trying to find the right one at the right payment? In that you go out there and you think you found a good one and that it's only going to cost this much a month. And then when you start drilling down a bit, you find, well, actually, you're only going to get that much a month if you write to them in 3 or 4 months' time, and they're going to send you a check back or a voucher back. And then you've also got to put this much money up front for that to occur. And it gets so complicated. There's so many strings attached. I know people that have just given up and just taken whatever contract there is because they can't work out what's actually they're going to be paying at what time. And unfortunately, that's not the only industry that's like that, is it? There's many contracts that we find ourselves signing into that we really don't know what we're going to end up paying out of that. But you'll be relieved to know that God's perfect timing and God's contracts don't have small print. They are not indeterminable. You know what you're going to get. There are no strings attached. There's no obligations on our part associated with his perfect timing. There is no obligations. He answers prayers. He gives blessings. And I think the challenge we really have in that is to be able to grasp that, because we live in a world that is so much different. We live in a world where everybody expects payment for something else, where somebody always expects something in return. But God never expects anything in return. God has pure intentions. He has perfect intentions. He has truthful intentions. Of course, he expects us to act according to his word. That's not a small print item. That's a major part of the contract. It's a major part of the contract. But there's never any small print. There's never any strings attached. There's never any hiddenness to this. He's up front in his dealings. There's no small prints. There's no gotchas. Finally, point number 9. We're not doing too badly. There's no appointment necessary. You see, alongside all those emergency hospital visits I did, there was a whole raft of scheduled appointments that I had to attend with people. You know, appointments with OTs, with physios, x-rays, pharmacies, GPs, and the list is endless. And all those had to be done on top of the normal appointments of life. And it seems that if you want to see someone with influence and power, you need to get an appointment. If you want to get your world changed, you need to get an appointment. If you want to get healthy, you need to get an appointment. Now, there is an obvious similarity there with God. And if you want to get fixed up or get your life changed by God, you need to make an appointment with him. Actually, you need to make a whole raft of appointments with him. And it's a great way to schedule our lives around those daily encounters with God. To achieve much in our lives, we need to find ways of becoming accountable to people. And what's better than becoming accountable to God? What's better than becoming accountable with him? But the whole thing that we need to watch this, which is why I've named it so at this point, no appointment is necessary, is this. is that we can make the mistake of limiting God to those appointments, to those slots of time. It's us that needs the appointment. It's us that needs the schedule, not God. You see, he's available 24/7, every second, every moment of every day. He's there when we turn around to him and go to him. But if we don't make those appointments and those slots, then we never seem to do it. We never seem to make contact. God always has perfect availability, unlimited by the hours in the day, by work, unlimited by play or by sleep. He is unlimited. So in conclusion, it's interesting, isn't it, that God's timing isn't always the same as ours, and his view is not always the same view as ours. And much of that is down to our own kind of worldview experiences of what we've walked through, or our own impatience. It's not God. And we really need to get a grasp that things don't always come how we expect them to come. The truth is God's timing is much better than our timing. And we need to learn to wait on God so much more. We need to learn to wait. Learn to wait. And that's an active waiting as well. Not sitting on our proverbial laurels, not becoming a procrastinator. Waiting on God means getting guidance through Scripture. Christian family and Christian friends and mentors too. So remember, and here we go, here's the summary for those that didn't get you the points. God doesn't have deadlines, he has seasons. He is not like us, he's not impatient. God's timing is true, there are never any catches. His judgment is never clouded. Your benefit is at the center of his actions. God has you on his mind. We can't hold that many personal relationships, but God can. He has perspective. He encapsulates all things, so he knows all things. God's timing is perfect. It's never wrong, even often though it can feel like that. God's events and contracts don't have any small print. What you see is what you get. He always has time for you, even if you don't have time for him.